And I have the pleasure to host on Life Sciences Today, Dr. James Hamrick, who is Senior Vice President and Chair of the Precision Oncology Alliance at Caris Life Sciences. And my name is Danny Lieberman. I'm the host of Life Sciences Today. I'm a physicist by training, but I've been involved with clinical trials, over 70 of them in over a period of like 6 or 7 years. And I have a great pleasure to talk to you today, James. Welcome to
Great.
the show.
Thanks, Danny. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited about our conversation.
So, it's not every day that we have someone of your stature in a company with God knows, I couldn't count how many, like 900,000 biomarkers in the database, something like that. And so tell me about your journey. How did you end up in this slot?
So I don't know about my stature, but I can sure talk about my journey. So it's been an interesting one. I'm a medical oncologist and am the son of a physician. And grew up in North Carolina, did my medical school at UNC Chapel Hill, and then went and did residency in internal medicine and fellowship in hematology oncology at the University of California, San Francisco, and got an introduction to patient care and research at UCSF during that time, and came out and went into general clinical practice in oncology here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm based, and sort of figured I would be a general oncologist for the next 30 years, taking care of patients, and really loved that book of work. Was very interested in the intimate patient relation. With a cancer patient, you really get to know them and their loved ones and their support network, and sort of operate as the primary care doctor for that patient. So really enjoyed that. And what happened was I practiced. I was in practice for probably 5 or 6 years, and within our general community oncology practice, I was always the person that was sort of saying, well, why don't we think about doing this for quality, or why don't we think about doing this to standardize the way we take care of patients? And what I discovered, and I can now share with my children, is when you do that, someone will quickly say, well, why don't you figure it out, and give you the keys to the vacuum cleaner, so to speak. So I became the chief of our small division here in Atlanta, and had one day a week, so 4 days a week of straight up patient care, and then one day a week to do sort of operations and quality for our oncology group, and really found that I enjoyed that part of the work. And what I enjoyed the most was getting access to data to try to glean some insights into how we were caring for patients. And this would have been around 2014, 2015. So I realized this one day a week that I was spending looking at data, doing sort of operations and quality, I really enjoyed, and I was open to trying to build that out, but still very much love the patient care element. Around that time, I was introduced by a mutual friend to one of the founders of Flatiron Health, a guy named Nat Turner, and we started a conversation, which originally started with me saying, "Hey, I'd like to get better access to data," which, of course, I was only beginning to learn is a huge challenge in the healthcare ecosystem, and particularly in oncology. And so we went back and forth on some potential projects, and he's a really good visionary. And so over the course of about a year, he said, "Hey, well, why don't we sort of think the same way? Why don't you come join us?" And so I made the big leap from full-time clinical care with a bit of an admin role into working for Flatiron Health, which is a real-world data company. That was in 2016. I continued to see patients every Monday in Atlanta, very much as a general community oncologist. And so that perspective allowed me to see sort of both the frontline clinical care challenges and opportunities, as well as the perspective of a private sector company that was trying to build solutions to help drive cancer care forward, both in research and in frontline care. So tools like electronic medical records for oncology care. So spent 8.5 years there. It was a real education, learned a lot about not only research and science and real world data, but also how you develop, how you conceive of products and solutions, et cetera, et cetera. And so, but what I really loved about that job was that we would share the data. We created sort of a unique data set that that really didn't exist before, at least not at the scale that Flatiron is able to do it. So that is corralling all the data from the big messy data from electronic medical records and making some sense of it. And that turned on a lot of lights for me as far as what, how this data that's generated as a byproduct of the care experience can actually, when it's done rigorously and thoughtfully, can actually really serve the way we learn about how to take care of patients. So during the course of my experience, both as a clinician and working at Flatiron, I got to know Caris. So, as a clinician, ordering tests through Caris to do comprehensive genomic profiling on cancer patients, I got sort of the user experience in the parlance of of product development
Right.
there, and was very impressed by the offering, particularly the early investment in whole exome and whole transcriptome sequencing. So, just as a frontline oncologist taking care of patients, I was struck that one of the big vendors in the industry in the next generation sequencing, comprehensive genomic profiling industry, was actually doing whole exome, whole transcriptome that early. So that was very impressive, and the reports were good. The user experience was impressive. The availability of the experts at Caris. Um, at Flatiron, we had a partnership with Caris, so I was on the Flatiron side, but we were integrating Caris into the electronic medical record. So Flatiron has an oncology specific electronic medical record used by about 40% of the independent oncologists in the United States. And Caris, along with other vendors, was integrating their ordering and resulting into the EHR, which we can talk about, but just such a crucial piece. You can build the best tools in the world, but if you don't insert them into the physician's workflow in a way that is useful and doesn't create friction, it doesn't, they won't get adopted. So that was an interesting perspective to have. And then when I saw the role come up to lead the Caris Precision Oncology Alliance, I really jumped at it because the it was similar to what had drawn me so much into the whole realm of real world data and data sharing and aggregating data sets. So from the beginning, the initial founder's vision going back to 2008 or so at Caris was not only to create point of care solutions for testing that were useful to doctors and patients, that would enable doctors to understand tumor biology in ways that we've never had the tools to do before. So genomic profiling, NGS, whole exome, whole transcriptome. So Caris knew from the beginning they were going to build those tools, but they also had the vision to say, as we do this and as we scale it, we're going to create a pretty incredible data set. And so again, this theme for my personal journey of data generated as a byproduct of caring for patients being useful to drive science and innovation forward. So from the beginning, Caris decided we're going to share the data, the molecular data, in a HIPAA de-identified, compliant, appropriate way as good stewards of the data. We're going to share that with the smartest investigators in the field to drive the science forward. So the Precision Oncology Alliance at Caris is the manifestation of that vision. So since about 2015, it's really a collaborative research community consisting now of 97 different cancer centers, and most of that was built before James Hamrick arrived on the scene in December of 2024. So credit to my colleagues and predecessors. But POA is a collaborative research community that has access to this really remarkable data asset through Caris. The flagship data asset is a multimodal molecular data set, which is comprised of Caris molecular data matched to clinical data in the form of claims, and it has just under 500,000 patient profiles in it. So what that gives you is it gives you not only, hey, what is the tumor biology in terms of whole exome, whole transcriptome, but what actually happened to this patient? And that becomes extremely powerful. So I was thrilled to have the opportunity to join Caris, to lead the POA, to take the reins of incredible work that had been done by my predecessors. And my job is super fun. I get to work with really smart investigators at some of the best cancer centers in the world to think about how can we use this data asset in service of patients and science. And so, it's been a fun ride. I never would have thought that I would be here. If you talked to James Hamrick in 2006 on the last day of my fellowship, I never would have predicted this, but man, I'm having a good time.
It sounds like it. It looks like it. And now I'm beginning to sort of like, have some aha moments in exactly what you do, because I was on the website, I'm reading, and I know a little bit about
Yeah,
omics. I had a customer who was a professor of oncology at Tel Aviv Medical Center, medical school, and we did a data project with them. And the first thing he said was, he says, let me give you a lecture. Okay. So he sat down with me and he taught me about omics. It was actually great because
great.
I was, I said, I don't really understand what you're doing. Okay. And so he was gracious enough because he was a teaching professor also. So he like literally sat down with me for like an hour or two, and he actually gave me like a whole lecture on that. It was great. But for a person who's like a tech guy,
Yeah.
I was
It,
like,
it,
oh,
it's
okay.
fascinating, and the pace of the innovation is just astounding. So,
Yeah.
we have to call it multi-omics now because we don't know how many different inputs we're going to have. We have molecular data, clinical data, pathology data, radiology data. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And what's really amazing to me, because this wasn't so clear from the website, is that the alliance is about sharing de-identified data with how many you said? 97?
97 centers. So yeah, so again, it's quite remarkable. This data is shared for free through an application process, which is very similar to other, you can think of it sort of as a granting process. Investigators from POA sites can submit applications for projects, and we have a process where we decide which of those we can resource. And it is a very unique, large scale data asset. The reality is, and you see this when you get into the data science and the real world evidence, et cetera, is even large cancer centers rarely have the scale to answer lots of important questions with the statistical power you need. And so just by virtue of being such a large scale vendor, Caris is able to generate this big data set, and then we share it. And so it's been incredibly fruitful. We just had a major milestone in late 2024. We passed our 1,000th publication. So using the Caris data assets, that includes abstracts and posters at conferences, but we're also around 400 fully peer-reviewed manuscripts. And so we're very proud, and I'm very proud at Caris of the scientific rigor with which we approach everything, but also of these collaborative partnerships that we have through the POA. So, the spirit of POA is the data is there, and Caris wants to leverage the smartest people across diseases to understand how to best use it. And then when they do these papers, we want them to invite lots of co-authors and collaborators. So if you look at our POA publications, which you can see on the website, they have many authors, and that's because we have lots of rounds of evaluation and review by different authors, so we can be very inclusive.
That's great. A lot of eyeballs, which is great. So it's not only the identified data, but it's also on the other side, a lot of eyeballs looking at it and doing research and writing papers.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean the Caris founders were wise enough early on to realize that while Caris would generate this large data set, we wanted to partner with others to understand how to use it.
So Caris is you go to the first floor of this building, but
Yeah.
it's a diagnostics company, right?
Yep. Yep.
And but really, the more I think about it and talk to you, and I've talked to other guests I've had on the show. By the way, Alex Dale from Flatiron was my guest a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah, I love Alex. He's great.
Great guy, Alex. Yeah, so I'm beginning to get some perspective on this, and I think that the the trend right now, and it's just turning into like a tornado, is that people understand that clinical data is an intellectual property. It's valuable, and we sort of gone from a place maybe 5, 10 years ago where people said it's a lot of data, it's unstructured, who knows what to do with it. Now we're a place today where you have projects like POA where it's bringing tangible value to people. And of course, in your systems and Flatiron and other companies in this space, they're actually helping patients on a day-to-day basis. But on top of all of this work, you the diagnostics and the systems, you actually have insights that are generated in learning that is being done. And that, when I hear things like 1,000 papers, that's a lot of learning. A lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, Caris at its core is a molecular services, a diagnostics company. So the primary reason for being, so to speak, is to provide tools like our tissue test, My Cancer Seek, and Caris Assure, our liquid tests, so that doctors can quickly get the information that they need about the biology of a patient's tumor to make the best evidence-based treatment decision overall. And so, at our core, we focus on doing best-in-class genomic sequencing and interpretation using whole exome, whole transcriptome, rapid turnaround time, availability. This is such a, believe it or not, it's still such early days in the whole multiomic space that a part of it is the test itself, and then part of it is making sure you have the right wraparound expertise. So we have a large team of board certified pathologists that are available to help with interpretation of results and making sure the right test is done. We've invested heavily in a molecular sciences liaison team, which is a non-commercial med affairs team, which is available to frontline clinicians to help them order and interpret the tests so they can make the best treatment decision for their patients. So we've done a lot of work to put these to be hyper efficient with the way we use samples from patients. So creating a single platform that does whole exome, whole transcriptome in tissue, also in blood. We are really stingy with patient samples because we know, and that's because we have a lot of frontline clinicians like myself on staff. We know when you put a needle in a patient to take a piece of tissue, that is precious material, because if you need to get more of it, if you come up with a dreaded quantity not sufficient, that means another human being has to go under an invasive procedure. So we've done a lot to get a lot of information out of the samples that doctors and patients trust us with. And same thing with blood testing. So our core value is still point of care molecular testing and wraparound expertise so that doctors and patients have the information they need to drive the best outcome. And then we've built these other things on top of that to help drive the science.
But at the end of the day, it's that frontline diagnosis driving the data for the POA and for other things that you're doing now.
It's a virtuous cycle, and that's sort of the beauty, and that's what James Hamrick really loves about where we are in oncology care and science right now. Is that there are the potential for innovation, and especially now, we can talk about not just Caris, but lots of people, but we've been doing it since 2016, 2017 at Caris. You combine the breakthroughs in sequencing, the breakthroughs in bioinformatics, which is the analysis of the ACTs and Gs that you get from genomic sequencing, and then you throw artificial intelligence and language models into it, and you can do some pretty powerful stuff. And so a lot of our tools are backed by that.
Well, that's where we're going. I mean, we have ways to go, but that's certainly where we're going. That sort of brings me to my next question, which is, you create value for frontline clinicians with the omics and for investigators at the cancer centers with the ability to do deeper research and to share that information. Over 1,000 papers is just incredible, I think.
Yeah.
How do you capture value? So I think I understand how the diagnostics part captures value. You pay for a test, and you need a test. You pay for it to get the results.
Yeah.
But how is the POA what, a nonprofit organization? How does that work?
POA is part of Caris, so it's not spun out as a distinct nonprofit. But it is a strictly and compliantly non-commercial part of Caris. And sometimes I say this to people and they sort of say, is that even possible? We POA seeks to nurture collaborative scientific communities in order to optimize the use of this extremely unique large data set we have. And so we are at POA, we are distinct from the commercial side of Caris, but we're not a nonprofit. What we're trying to do is drive broad and deep relationships with the best cancer institutions in the US and in the globe to drive the science of multi-omics forward. And we are in a moment where the ability to sequence and interpret results is so early that if you really were trying to drill down on the business case for POA, it would be the rising tide raises all boats. The more we can drive the science forward and the innovation around how to use all these great tools we have to sequence and interpret results, and to layer AI into that, the better that does for sort of everyone. And because Caris is a scaled player in that industry, that works for us. But this goes back to our founder's vision. It may sound corny, but our founders envisioned the company to solve complex medical problems and drive better outcomes for patients. And they had the foresight to recognize that building new tools to drive the science forward was important. So that's really where POA resides and what my job is all about. And it's a lot of fun. I'm very privileged to work here.
It's incredible. It sounds like a lot of fun. And now I had just another aha moment, which is that if you do want to solve new problems, you're not going to do it by not sharing. So you have to share it.
Yeah.
The more eyeballs, the more sharing that you have on the data, the more innovation you're going to get. So that must lead you into opportunities, no?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the anecdotes I like to tell, I'm old enough to remember the Human Genome Project and that incredible, collaborative effort to sequence the first human genome. And it took, 1 to 2 decades and multiple billions of dollars. We now have, a row of machines in our lab in Arizona that can sequence an incredible number of something like 196 full human genomes in 44 hours, at a manageable cost. And it's sort of incredible to say that during my professional lifetime, this incredible leap has happened. And I think that only happens when a lot of people are running at the same challenges and problems. And I think that's where we are in multi-omics. I mean, as soon as we maybe get to a plateau of innovation on the DNA, RNA sequencing, whole exome, whole transcriptome, digital pathology comes along, computational path, with AI. And so I think that is really where the collaborative nature of what we do is important, and I think we drive a lot of value in the space that way, and we get a lot of value from collaborating with the people at POA sites. Their insights are always welcome. It's incredibly fun. We have what are called disease working groups where across breast cancer, GU oncology, GI oncology, we have regular meetings to understand what are the most important opportunities to transform patient care through science, and how can Caris collaborate to that. Some of these are research projects driven by investigators at POA sites that are just using the Caris data, but some of the most exciting and highest impact ones are ones where an investigator at a POA site has already got, maybe an animal model or some preclinical data or some clinical data. They just need a scaled data set like ours for one or two more figures to really take their paper from kind of a mid-level paper to, a really high impact journal. So it's exciting to be part of that process. And that's a way we drive value beyond the frontline testing.
Have you had any product spin-offs from POA? In other words, has this resulted in new products for Caris?
Yeah, I would say a lot of we have collaborators on a lot of the science that goes into our products. So we're always looping in people to make sure, like you said, we have another set of eyes or another light bulb on the process. So we have a tool called GPS AI, which is something that comes with our tissue sequencing. And this is using an AI algorithm in the background to help solve a couple of challenging problems in oncology. Number one, and sort of where this was born, was a problem called carcinoma of unknown primary. So about 1% of the time, a patient will come in and they'll have a mass, let's say in the liver or the bone, and you'll biopsy it, and you actually won't be able to tell, where did this start? Is it a colon cancer? Is it a lung cancer? That's got a name, carcinoma of unknown primary. It's incredibly hard to treat. And if you can identify the source, the organ that it came from, is this actually a lung cancer? Then you're going to be able to better tailor your therapy to the patient. So we built this solution, which is part of our tissue test, baked in without any additional cost or anything to the patient. It's a signature based on 67 different genes using AI in the background, and it helps to drive to take those unknown primaries and find the tissue of origin based on the omics. You can only do that if you have whole exome, whole transcriptome, lots of data. If you have a smaller panel, it's just not going to be as good. You don't get as many shots on goal, so to speak. That has been really useful. We've surveyed doctors, and the majority of them are saying they find it useful for these carcinoma of unknown primary cases, and it actually it gives them an opportunity to change therapy for their patients. As a result of that work, we also found that this tool can actually help. Sometimes we get cases that come in where that we may find something that actually says, hey, it was sent in as a lung cancer, but we actually think this may be squamous cell carcinoma of the skin or a bladder cancer. So this technology, this is using AI in the background of our tissue test to start a conversation between our board certified pathologists and the local pathologists and the local oncologists about, let's make sure we have the right diagnosis here. And again, that can make a huge amount of difference for a patient. So when we built those, we built them leveraging, some of the expertise and co-authors from the POA. So that's an example of a product or feature that has come out of these collaborations. And we have other ideas that we're working on, some exciting stuff, across the multimodal spectrum.
I'm sure you do. And that sort of brings us to the interview question, which is, what are three things James wants to do for his customers in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, so the first thing that I'll say is, at my heart, at my core, I'm very empathetic with the frontline clinician. And the pace of innovation, the things that you have to understand and be fluent in related to molecular medicine, is just exploding. And quite frankly, oncologists, they're busy people and they're never going to have time to keep up with everything. So I'm very excited about us building tools and expertise that integrate into the physician workflow to help them understand how to order the right test at the right time and interpret it properly so they can make the right evidence-based therapeutic solution. So we do this by thinking really carefully about how we put things into reports, how we make them interpretable and easily actionable for physicians, how we make ourselves available for the physicians that have a question, and how we put experts in the field. One of the things I like to say is, about 10 or 15 years ago, as every patient started coming into your cancer clinic on 5 or 10 meds, we realized that we needed PharmDs, pharmacy experts, on board with the team to be part of the patient's care team. I think we're at a place where we actually need molecular experts. So Caris invests heavily in helping the doctor at the front line. So that's the first thing. in the second thing is I'm very interested, as we build out these multi-omic tools, be it whole exome, whole genome, whole transcriptome testing in liquid and tissue. They're incredibly powerful. We use AI in the background. I'm very interested in communicating to doctors how the AI works in ways that make it less of a black box so that people will trust and adopt solutions that drive better outcomes for patients. So, I saw a signature that's telling me that this patient actually should have this therapy, but I don't understand what went behind it. I think at Caris, we are so familiar with AI as we build it into our tools. We are part of that solution of like explaining to people not only here's how you use this tool, but how this tool, why you can trust it. And
with,
then
with
go ahead.
patients, right? With patients.
Exactly, with patients. So I think that's just crucial. So those are both frontline facing, so helping doctors with clinical decision support, helping doctors understand how the tools for the practice of medicine today of oncology are being built. Then from the research standpoint in POA, it's nurturing these collaborative scientific communities. So we're doing some things within the POA to help make sure that we really understand the best opportunity, the best places that our data is additive to the scientific conversation. We just had a really important paper published about our liquid biopsy, which has some features that distinguish it from other liquid biopsies on the market, so whole exome, whole transcriptome, but also we find things like incidental germline and clonal hematopoiesis. And there's an interesting dialogue going on in the New England Journal about the importance of clonal hematopoiesis that we're part of. And so continuing to nurture these scientific communities and making, getting even more podium presentations for really rigorous high impact science, more widespread journal articles published. That's a big imperative of mine.
Well, so it sounds like you're busy.
I'm busy, but I'm having a great time.
And you're busy, having a great time, and you're doing amazing things for patients, I think.
Well, I appreciate that. That's built in the founder ethos at Caris. The mom rule, treat everyone like you would treat your mom. It's just that's really a North Star here, and so it makes it a fun place to work.
So it's been a pleasure, James. I'm the host of Life Sciences Today. We're part of the Healthcare IT network. We have a pretty huge following, and Life Sciences podcast has been growing like a rocket. The past, I'm doing like 2 or 3 a week now, and it's during the summer. I figured no one would want to talk.
Yeah.
But there's lots of stuff happening, and now I think maybe 6 months ago when we started this, before I started this 6 months ago, I wasn't thinking much about tech bio. I thought it was kind of like a buzzword. And today tech bio is like the rocket ship, and
Yeah.
and there's no question about it. It's hugely interesting and important for patients.